Damn!
As part of the latest GT7 update, we know that the performance of most cars has been adjusted. What's interesting is over the past few days I've been deep diving a lot of my tunes and updating my guides. And I'm happy to report that in most cases, some of the best cars in the game have been improved. This means you can potentially add power, reduce weight, and improve aerodynamics of some of the best and most unique rides in the game. For this video, I'm going to cover 3 examples where we look into how the updated physics models has changed performance in 1.31. We'll be covering the 89 Sauber Mercedes C9, the 98 Mercedes CLK-LM, and the 91 Mazda 787B. In addition, I'll cover a few details regarding the changes in the game's 1.31 update, specifically in regards to the physics engine. So be sure to use the timestamps below if there's a specific car you want to see. This won't be a deep dive of the car history or race strategy, so if you want those, I've linked those guides in the description, and I'll reference them as we go through each car just in case you need some further details. So what's my non-scientific, semi-casual take on what I've seen so far with the physics changes? First, Group 1 and Group 2 cars have gotten a significant performance boost. This seems to be virtually across the board, with the exception of open wheel formats, and I'll get more into that in a bit. Road cars in the 600 to 700 range have seen some adjustments, but typically only a few performance points. You can now squeeze out a bit more performance for most road cars, typically a few percentage points of power or increased aero, depending on what you need for the race. Open wheel cars seem to have gotten a pretty significant hit in performance with the aerodynamics changes. They are still incredibly strong, but I've noticed I've had to play with their tunes way more than I had to do with most other cars in the same performance range. Classic and muscle cars all seem to have been buffed. I've been adding power and aero to muscle cars in general, plus with the suspension changes, they do seem to be more forgiving on the track. And just a related note, the tire physics changes, they're just great. You now have more options on how to pit or approach your race strategy in virtually all events. You're really no longer required to run hards 95% of the time, and you can actually use other compounds in the race to further tailor your tune. So further details on all of this is confirmed in the patch notes, but I wanted to share my take on the changes with more of a tuning lens. It was just incredible noticing the performance differences as I was going through my builds, and it's enough of a buff that it's worth mentioning on its own. Now when I say buffed, I mean you can get some further latitude when the game is now considering the performance rating of the car. I don't mean that the car has been directly buffed by the dev team, but the way the game now calculates the overall performance, it actually gives you a bit more runway to add additional components, adjust aero, or reallocate weight and balance without bumping up the performance threshold dramatically. So what does this mean in terms of these 3 legendary cars we're covering today? So in general on these cars you can expect to see increased max power, increased torque, reduced weight, adjusted weight balance, and just overall improved handling, including both acceleration and cornering. So Gran Turismo has always been known for its realistic physics engine, which accurately simulates the way cars handle and responds to different driving conditions on the track. It's kind of a simcade, if you will. So while GT7 isn't the most detailed sim racer on the market, it does have a nice blend of convenience and simulation features. With the 1.31 update, the specific physics changes that appear to have the most significant impact. 1. Suspension. The update has improved the simulation of suspension behavior with better accuracy on how the suspension reacts to bumps and dips in the road. Players will notice some changes when navigating rough terrain, wet, or uneven surfaces. 2. Improved tire modeling. The game's tire modeling has been updated to be more realistic, with improved grip and handling for different tire types and conditions. So this means that players will need to pay closer attention to their tire choices and how they are performing during a race. You should see improved stability when driving over these bumps and through low-speed corners. The third one is aerodynamics. So the game's physics engine now models aerodynamics a bit more accurately, which affects how the cars handle. This seems to be most noticeably at high speeds, which really is no surprise. This means that players will need to adjust their driving style and potentially their car setup to account for changes in the aerodynamic model. So let's deep dive the 3 cars and how you can further adjust them to improve their performance. I'll include a quick summary of all 3 of these cars at the end of the video. In addition, the pinned comments on each separate video have been updated so you can reference them later. So starting with the Sauber C9. So with the Sauber C9, we've got 2 builds on the channel. The first one is at 700 performance points. So this takes the max power from 357 to 404. Max torque goes from 381 to 422. And you can see the acceleration is already improved. In terms of the adjustments, we've just played with the ECU output and the power restrictor, and we've also added some front downforce. When you look at the 800 performance points build, it's much more pronounced. So max power goes from 653 to 710. Max torque goes from 567 to 597. Weight is reduced to 2,000 pounds. Front and rear balance is adjusted because we pulled out the weight. And acceleration and handling performance is actually dramatically improved. So again, this is going 100% on the ECU, 100% on the power restrictor, reducing the ballast dramatically, and adjusting the front downforce. In addition, it's worth noting on this build is I did tweak the LSD slightly because we are putting a lot more power down. So for the Mercedes, you can see max power goes from 587 to 599. Max torque goes from 391 to 397. Weight's reduced about, 50 pounds to 2,072. And we've adjusted the front and rear balance slightly. But overall, it's had an improvement in acceleration and handling. This was done by adjusting both the front and rear downforce and increasing the output and the power restrictor both to 100%. So for my favorite, the 787B, for the 700 performance points build, max power goes from 337 to 414. Max torque goes from 262 to 309. We've slightly increased the weight, and acceleration has improved dramatically. And this was done by adjusting front downforce, adjusting the ECU output, repositioning the ballast, and adjusting the power restrictor. Now for the 800 performance points options, max power goes from 596 to 690. Max torque goes from 401 to 448. Weight is reduced dramatically. We've actually removed the ballast from the car. Front and rear weight balance has changed as a result, but the acceleration and handling are dramatically improved. So we've done that by adjusting the downforce both front and rear. We've increased the max output by 100% for both the restrictor and the ECU. And I have adjusted the torque sensitivity on the LSG just because we are putting additional power down. So just as a quick note, all three of these cars are purchased from the Legendary dealership. The Mercedes is currently in the dealer right now at the time of recording, and the others will cycle in and out. So I'll watch for them on my channel and be sure to notify the community when I see them pop up. The reason I focused on these three cars specifically is that they're three of my favorite cars in the game. They're a blast to drive, they handle virtually any track you can toss at them. So if you don't have them in your garage now, just watch for them to return. You really won't regret adding any of these cars to your garage. In terms of livery, just credit to the designers on the screen now. If you like them and want to use their work, be sure to share and repost it and give them the like. So in summary, the new physics engine will now take into account the same factors as before, but it has reprioritized its rating and the impact on performance. This, combined with road surface and weather conditions, weight distribution of the car, and the collision modeling that we already have in game, means that you'll need to be even more aware of your driving conditions and tuning parameters if you want to better your times. Overall, these changes seem to have made the driving experience of Gran Turismo 7 even more realistic and challenging, requiring players to pay close attention to their driving style and their car setup, as well as the conditions of the road and just incoming weather. The updated physics engine should hopefully make the competition in races a bit more intense and rewarding for skilled players. So penalty system aside in sport mode, that's a whole nother discussion. The overall physics changes in 1.31 seem to have moved the game in the right direction. Having gone through 50 plus tunes in my garage, I'm convinced it's made more cars viable for more races, and more importantly, it's made some of the builds much more exciting to drive. So that's it. Look, if you like my content, please be sure to subscribe and share it with your fellow gearheads. If you're looking for more info on GT7, tuning, or just gaming in general, feel free to join the Discord. Links in the description below. Stay tuned for the tuning summaries, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.